Alex walks into a dealership and decides to buy a car. Jake walks into the same dealership and chooses to lease the very same model for 36 months. Both cars cost $35,000. Both people earn $100,000 a year. Both need a reliable car to get to work. And both believe they've made a financially reasonable decision. But here's the question. Which one actually puts them in a better financial position? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. Alex chooses to buy. His monthly payment is higher, but eventually that payment disappears. Jake chooses to lease. His monthly payment is lower, he drives a newer vehicle, and every 3 years he can potentially get another new car. So which strategy wins? Here's where things get interesting. If we compare Alex and Jake after just 3 years, leasing looks like the obvious winner. But fast forward a few more years, and the picture changes completely. Because this isn't really a comparison between buying and leasing. It's a comparison of where every dollar ends up over the next decade. Today, we're going to follow Alex and Jake for 10 full years. We'll look at their payments, financing costs, ownership, maintenance, depreciation, and even the opportunity cost of the money they're spending. Because the real question isn't which monthly payment is lower. The real question is, what does each decision actually cost you over time? Let's run the numbers. To make this comparison fair, we're going to give Alex and Jake almost identical circumstances. They're the same age. They work at the same company. They earn the same $100,000 annual salary. And they both want the same $35,000 sedan. The only major difference is how they want to pay for it. Alex prefers ownership. His philosophy is, I'll pay more now, own the car later, and eventually eliminate the payment. Jake has a different philosophy. He prefers flexibility. His thinking is, why tie up more money in a car when I can have a lower monthly payment and drive a newer vehicle? So let's establish the financing assumptions. Alex finances the purchase with $3,000 down and a 60-month loan at 6% interest. His monthly payment is approximately $619. Jake chooses a 36-month lease. He puts $2,000 down and pays $349 per month. At first glance, Jake's deal looks much better. Alex puts down more money. Alex pays almost twice as much every month. And Jake has an extra $270 every month that isn't going toward a car payment. So let's start the clock. On day 1, leasing looks like the clear winner. Jake has lower upfront costs, he has a lower monthly payment, and he has more cash available. That's attractive. If you only look at your monthly budget, it's easy to understand why someone would choose leasing. A $349 payment feels much easier than a $619 payment. And that extra $270 each month can feel like financial freedom. But there's a critical difference hiding underneath those payments. Every payment Alex makes is part of a path toward ownership. Jake's lease payments give him the right to use the vehicle during the lease term. At the end of that term, the vehicle goes back. Alex is gradually paying off an asset. Jake is essentially paying for the use of the vehicle for a specific period. Neither strategy is automatically wrong, but they create completely different outcomes. And that difference doesn't become obvious immediately. So let's fast forward. 3 years have passed. This is where many car buying comparisons stop. And if we stop here, Jake appears to be the clear winner. Over those 3 years, Jake has spent approximately $14,564. That's his $2,000 upfront payment plus 36 monthly payments of $349. Alex, meanwhile, has spent approximately $25,271. That's significantly more. The difference is roughly $10,700. So if you looked at nothing except cash leaving their bank accounts during those first 3 years, Jake wins. He spent less. He had a lower monthly payment. And he got to drive a newer vehicle. Alex looks like the person who made the expensive decision. But there's something missing from this scoreboard: ownership. Alex has been making payments toward a car that he will eventually own. Jake reaches the end of his 36-month lease. He hands over the keys, signs another stack of paperwork, and drives away in another new vehicle. Alex still has 24 months remaining on his original loan. But something important is happening. Every payment Alex makes is moving him closer to a point where the payment disappears. That's the fundamental difference between these two strategies. Jake's 3-year lease ends, and to keep driving a vehicle, he needs another arrangement. Alex's 5-year loan ends, and once it's paid off, he can keep driving the same car without a monthly car payment. That's a very different financial position, and it creates one of the most important questions in this entire comparison. What happens when one payment disappears while the other keeps resetting? Let's find out. Now let's jump ahead to year 6. At this point, Jake has completed 2 full leases. Across those 2 lease terms, he spent just over $29,000. And he still doesn't own the vehicle he's driving. He's driving something newer. He has the flexibility he wanted. But the payment continues. Alex has spent more on his vehicle. But then something happens that completely changes his financial picture. Alex wakes up on the 1st of the month. He opens his banking app, and for the first time in 5 years, nothing leaves his checking account for a car payment. That $619 is gone. Not temporarily. Not because he found a special lease promotion. The loan is simply finished. And Alex still owns the vehicle. Let's say that vehicle is now worth approximately $14,000. Now think about what just happened. Alex didn't make the car more valuable. Cars generally depreciate. He didn't create wealth because his vehicle appreciated. Instead, something much simpler happened. One monthly expense disappeared. That $619 that used to go to the lender can now stay in Alex's financial life. He can save it, invest it, use it to pay down other debt, or simply use it for other financial priorities. Jake doesn't have that option. His payment continues because his lease continues. This is where the buying strategy starts to become much more interesting. Imagine Alex does something very simple. Instead of allowing that $619 to disappear into lifestyle spending once his loan is paid off, he redirects it toward building wealth. The car payment has effectively become a wealth-building payment. Every month, $619 can potentially go toward an investment account instead of a lender. And this is where the idea of opportunity cost becomes important. Every dollar has an alternative use. If you spend $619 on a car payment, you can't simultaneously invest that same $619. If you spend $619 on a lease payment, the same thing is true. But once Alex's loan disappears, that $619 becomes available again. Jake's monthly payment doesn't disappear. It gets renewed when he enters another lease. This doesn't mean every dollar saved by buying automatically becomes investment money. Alex could spend it. He could upgrade his lifestyle. He could take vacations. The financial advantage only becomes meaningful if he actually uses the freed up cash productively. And that's an important lesson. Buying isn't automatically wealth building. What you do with the money after the car is paid off matters enormously. Now let's go all the way to year 10. This is where the comparison becomes much more revealing. Jake has completed 3 lease terms and is well into a 4th. Over those 10 years, he signed multiple contracts. He's continued making monthly payments. And he still doesn't own the vehicle he's currently driving. His advantage is that he's consistently driving newer vehicles. His disadvantage is that the payment keeps coming back. Alex is in a completely different position. His original loan ended years ago. He owns his vehicle outright. And while his vehicle is older, he has something Jake doesn't have: years without a car payment. Now, to make this comparison fair, we also need to talk about maintenance. Older vehicles aren't free. As a car gets older, repairs and maintenance can become more significant. So we've included approximately $12,000 in maintenance and repairs over the 10-year period. That's an important cost. Buying a car doesn't mean you can ignore maintenance. You have to budget for tires, brakes, routine servicing, repairs, and unexpected problems. But even after including those costs, the overall comparison still favors buying in this example. The final scoreboard. Let's put the final numbers on the screen. After 10 years, Jake, leasing, approximately $53,000 to $61,000 spent. Alex, who bought the car, has spent less over the life of this comparison. His original loan disappeared years ago. He owns his vehicle outright. That's why the scoreboard looks completely different from where it did at year 3. At year 3, leasing looked like the winner. At year 6, the picture started changing. At year 10, ownership has created a very different financial position. And that's the part most simple car comparisons miss. So what's the final verdict? The answer depends on your priorities. Leasing can absolutely make sense in certain situations. Someone who prioritizes driving a newer vehicle every few years may value that flexibility. A business owner may have different considerations. Someone driving a high-performance luxury vehicle may prefer avoiding certain expensive out-of-warranty repairs. There are legitimate reasons people choose to lease. But for the average person focused on long-term wealth building, buying a vehicle and keeping it for a long time will often have a significant financial advantage. And there's an even bigger lesson here. Very few people become wealthy because they chose leasing instead of buying. And very few people become wealthy simply because they bought instead of leased. The bigger question is, what do you do with the money that's left over? Think about what happened to Alex. The biggest financial advantage wasn't the car itself. It was the fact that the payment eventually ended. And what Alex does with that freed up cash can determine whether the decision actually improves his long-term financial position. That's how many financial decisions work. They don't reveal themselves in the first year. Sometimes they don't reveal themselves in 3 years. The real difference appears after 5, 10, or even 20 years. Because wealth usually isn't built by making one perfect financial decision. It's built by making dozens of reasonably good decisions and giving them enough time to compound. So before you sign your next car contract, don't just ask yourself, which payment is lower? Also ask, how much will this decision cost me over 10 years? Will I own anything at the end? What happens when the payments stop? What could I do with the money I don't have to spend? Because the dealership sells you the car. But the dealership doesn't determine your financial future. Everything that happens after you drive off the lot does. If you found this breakdown useful, subscribe for more videos where we take everyday financial decisions and run the math behind them. Because sometimes, the payment that looks cheapest today isn't the decision that costs you the least tomorrow. Thanks for watching. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.